Good day, officer.
Who are you and where are you coming from?
You have to be more professional with your job. Why do you approach me like I committed an offense?
Who are you, Mr. Man?
I'm a lawyer, a judge in the Supreme Court in Texas.
Stop lying. You're not a judge.
You call me a liar?
Yes, you are.
A 56-year-old black judge with decades of experience in the courtroom had just finished a long day at work. He was heading home to his wife, Angela, and their children, looking forward to the warmth of his family. But the peaceful walk home would soon spiral into a nightmare that would shake not only his faith in the justice system, but also his very identity. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell, as the next story is something you wouldn't want to miss. It was a cool, crisp autumn evening when Judge Walker Mark found himself stopped by two police officers in the middle of a quiet street in Oakwood. As he walked down Maple Avenue, his mind replaying the day's events, he was startled when the squad car pulled up beside him, blocking his path. "Hey you!" Officer Thompson barked, his voice sharp and demanding. Walker stopped, his brow furrowing. He recognized Officer Thompson from around town. He'd seen the man's confrontational behavior in the past, but this time there was something different in the officer's eyes, a certain arrogance. The air seemed to thicken with unspoken tension. "What's the problem, officer?" Walker asked, his voice calm but firm, knowing the delicate dance of remaining composed when stopped by law enforcement. "You fit the description of someone we're looking for," Officer Thompson replied, his eyes scanning Walker suspiciously. Walker's heart sank. He could feel the injustice of it all. A life built on hard work and respect, now reduced to being judged by the color of his skin, not the title he carried or the person he was. "I'm a judge," Walker said, his voice steady, though a knot formed in his stomach. He knew the weight of his words. His title was his shield. "A judge, huh?" Officer Thompson sneered, as if the idea was laughable. "Show me some ID." Walker complied, his hand moving to his wallet, but as he reached for his wallet, the officer's partner, Officer Daniels, stepped forward. He was a younger officer, eyes darting nervously as he observed Walker's movements. "You're lying," Officer Daniels said, a sneer curling his lip. "There's no way a black man like you is a judge. This is a small town, and we know who belongs here." Walker's pulse quickened. He had endured racism in various forms before, but this was different. This wasn't just prejudice, it was an attack on his very identity. The anger began to boil inside him, but he forced himself to stay composed. "I assure you," Walker said, his voice low and measured, "I am Judge Walker Mark. I've been serving this community for over 30 years. I live just a few blocks away with my family." The officers exchanged glances, disbelief written all over their faces. Instead of offering any apology, they simply laughed. "Yeah, sure," Officer Thompson scoffed, "and I'm the mayor. Get over here." He grabbed Walker's arm roughly, pulling him toward the squad car. A sudden rush of adrenaline flooded Walker's system. He had been wronged countless times, but this was the first time it had escalated this far. His mind raced for his next steps. As the officers handcuffed Walker, the sound of metal clicking shut echoed through the night air. His mind flashed to his family, to Angela and the children waiting for him at home. They didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this. "You'll see. You'll all see," Walker muttered to himself, holding his head high despite the humiliation. The next several hours were a blur. Walker was taken to the local station, where he was treated like a criminal despite his repeated protests. He tried to call his wife, but his phone was confiscated. In the holding cell, he was surrounded by men of different races, all of them shaking their heads in disbelief when they learned why he was there. "You're telling me a judge is in here?" one man asked incredulously. "That's messed up." Walker said nothing. He didn't have to. The injustice spoke for itself. By the time his lawyer, a sharp-minded woman named Diana Edwards, arrived at the station, Walker had been sitting in the holding cell for hours. She was furious. She didn't need to ask what happened. She could see the evidence in Walker's eyes. "You're suing them, Walker," Diana said firmly, her voice full of resolve. "This isn't just about you. This is about everyone who's been wrongly accused. You will not let them get away with this." The days that followed were filled with frustration and legal battles, but Diana was a force to be reckoned with. She filed a lawsuit against the Oakwood Police Department, charging the officers with racial profiling, false imprisonment, and defamation of character. The case quickly gained attention, and soon people all across the nation were watching. Walker's name was in the headlines, but not for the reasons he had hoped. Instead of being celebrated for his years of service, he was now being ridiculed as a liar by the very officers meant to protect him. But Walker refused to back down. The courtroom became his battleground. His voice was strong, unwavering, as he recounted the events of that night. He detailed how the officers had mocked him, how they had disrespected not only his title, but his humanity. "I've spent my life serving this community," Walker said in the courtroom, his eyes locked onto the jury. "And yet on the night of October 12th, I was treated like a criminal, not because of anything I did, but because of the color of my skin." The defense tried to argue that Walker had been difficult and uncooperative, but Diana shredded their argument, presenting a damning case that exposed the officers' racial bias and the flawed system that allowed it to flourish unchecked. Months later, the day of reckoning arrived. The courtroom was packed, the press was there, the townspeople were there, and so was Walker. The jury deliberated for hours. The tension in the room was palpable. Walker's heart raced as he waited for the decision. Finally, the jury returned. The foreman stood up, and the room fell silent. "We, the jury, find the defendants, Officers Thompson and Daniels, guilty of racial profiling, false imprisonment, and defamation of character." A murmur swept through the room. Walker's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and triumph. The officers were immediately fired from their positions, but the consequences didn't stop there. They were ordered to pay restitution to Walker for his emotional distress and were publicly reprimanded for their actions. The Oakwood Police Department was also required to implement mandatory racial sensitivity training for all officers. The ruling was more than just a victory for Walker Mark, it was a lesson for everyone. The officers had paid the price for their ignorance and hatred, and the message was clear: racism would no longer be tolerated, not in Oakwood and not anywhere. Epilogue: The Legacy of Judge Walker Mark. Judge Walker Mark's victory became a landmark case in Oakwood and beyond. It sent a ripple through the justice system, reminding everyone that integrity and truth were the ultimate weapons in the fight against racial injustice. As for Walker, he returned to his life with his family, but the scars of that night never fully healed. He knew, however, that the fight was far from over. His victory had opened a door for others to follow, and he had become a beacon of hope for those who had been silenced by the weight of prejudice. His children, now old enough to understand the significance of their father's actions, looked up to him with pride. Walker Mark had not only defended his own dignity, but had paved the way for a future where justice, in its truest form, was accessible to all. And as he sat at the dinner table that evening, surrounded by the love of his family, Walker Mark knew that no matter what came next, he would always stand firm, no longer just as a judge, but as a man who fought for the truth, no matter the cost. If you find this content helpful, subscribe, drop a like, hit the notification bell, and comment where you are watching from. Tell us if you had any similar experience like this and what you think about Walker's case.